Commander Zexhai clicked his mandibles in what his species considered polite amusement as he watched the human recruits stumble through their first day at the Galactic Defense Academy. The Valkyrian officer had trained hundreds of species over his 40-year career, and humans were proving to be exactly what he expected. Soft, clumsy creatures from an unremarkable world who had somehow convinced the Galactic Council they deserved a place among the stars. "Look at them," whispered his aide, Lieutenant Corval, gesturing with one of his 4 arms toward the training ground. "They can barely handle standard gravity adjustments. How did these creatures ever develop space flight?" Zexhai observed the 23 human recruits as they attempted basic combat maneuvers. Unlike other species who adapted quickly to the Academy's standardized environment, the humans seemed to struggle with everything. They moved awkwardly in their bulky environmental suits, their breathing was labored, and several had already requested medical attention for minor injuries that wouldn't even register to most galactic species. The human instructor, a stern-faced woman named Sergeant Rodriguez, barked orders at her charges. "Move faster. The enemy won't wait for you to catch your breath." But even she seemed to be working harder than necessary, her movements deliberate and controlled in a way that suggested she was holding back. "Sergeant Rodriguez," Zexhai called out, his translator converting his chittering language into human standard English. "Perhaps we should modify the training regimen. Your species seems to be having difficulty with our basic requirements." The human sergeant turned toward him, and something in her dark eyes made Zexhai's antennae twitch. It wasn't fear or embarrassment, as he'd expected. It was something else entirely, something that reminded him uncomfortably of the look predators got just before they struck. "With respect, Commander," Rodriguez replied, her voice carefully neutral. "We're following your training protocols exactly as specified. My people are adapting to your methods." Zexhai nodded, though he found her emphasis on your methods slightly odd. "Of course, we've developed these protocols over thousands of years, testing them on countless species. They represent the most efficient way to prepare soldiers for galactic combat." What Zexhai didn't notice was the brief glance Rodriguez exchanged with her recruits, or the almost imperceptible nod she gave them. The humans had been briefed extensively before arriving at the Academy, not just on galactic military protocols, but on something far more important, the necessity of appearing weak until the time was right. The first phase of human integration into galactic society had been carefully planned by Earth's military strategists. Centuries of human warfare had taught them valuable lessons about the advantage of being underestimated. Let the galaxy see humans as soft and weak. Let them assume Earth was just another primitive world grateful for the chance to join galactic civilization. The truth would reveal itself when it mattered most. As the training session continued, more galactic officers gathered to watch the entertaining spectacle of human incompetence. Zexhai noticed Captain Thrello SS, the Academy's Bruton combat instructor, among the observers. The massive, rock-like being stood nearly 3 meters tall and was regarded as one of the finest warriors in the galaxy. "Commander Zexhai," Thrello SS rumbled, his voice like grinding stone, "I've heard interesting reports about these humans. Their homeworld is classified as a death world, yet they seem remarkably fragile." Zexhai's mandibles clicked again. "A bureaucratic error, no doubt. Look at them. They can barely manage our basic exercises. How could such creatures come from a death world?" Neither officer noticed that several human recruits had stopped their struggling to listen to this conversation, their expressions carefully blank despite the fact that their suit sensors were recording every word. The term death world wasn't used lightly in galactic classifications. It denoted planets so hostile that they actively tried to kill their inhabitants through extreme weather, aggressive fauna, toxic environments, or gravitational anomalies. Only a handful of worlds carried this classification, and the species that evolved on them were universally feared and respected throughout the galaxy. But humans didn't look like Deathworlders. They lacked the natural armor of the Korthax, the venomous capabilities of the Sylvine, or the incredible regenerative abilities of the Morgani. They seemed soft, vulnerable, and entirely dependent on their technology for survival. As the day's training concluded, Zexhai reviewed the performance reports with growing disappointment. The humans had scored poorly in every category: strength, endurance, reaction time, and adaptability. Several had requested reduced gravity settings. Others had complained about the training equipment being too heavy, and more than half had needed medical attention for minor scrapes and bruises. Perhaps we should recommend they be assigned to support roles, Lieutenant Corval suggested. Medical, communications, logistics. Something more suitable for their capabilities. Zexhai was about to agree when his communicator chimed. An urgent message from the Academy's research division scrolled across his screen, and his eyes widened as he read it. "Lieutenant," he said slowly, "pull up the environmental data for Earth. I want to see the original survey reports." As the data appeared on his holographic display, Zexhai felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. Earth's gravity was nearly twice the galactic standard. The atmospheric composition included oxygen levels that would be toxic to most species. The planet's weather systems were violently unstable, with temperature variations that could kill most galactic citizens within hours. The fauna included predators so aggressive and successful that they had driven countless other species to extinction. "This can't be right," Corval whispered. "If this data is accurate, then humans live in conditions that would kill most of us. But they seem so weak." Zexhai stared at the display for a long moment, then looked toward the human barracks where the recruits were resting after their difficult day. For the first time since their arrival, he began to wonder if there might be more to these strange creatures than met the eye. In the human quarters, Sergeant Rodriguez gathered her people for their evening debrief. The environmental suits they wore were more than just protective gear. They were sophisticated limiters designed to make the humans appear as weak and clumsy as possible while still allowing them to function. "Good work today, people," Rodriguez said quietly, her voice not carrying beyond the room's sound dampeners. "Remember, we're not here to impress anyone yet. We're here to learn everything we can about galactic military doctrine, technology, and, most importantly, their assumptions about human capabilities." Private Chun, who had spent the day pretending to struggle with equipment that weighed less than his standard Earth gear, raised his hand. "Sergeant, how long do we maintain this charade?" Rodriguez smiled grimly. "Until Earth Command gives us the signal, or until circumstances force our hand. The galaxy thinks Deathworlders should be obvious monsters. They can't imagine that the most dangerous predator might be the one that doesn't look threatening at all." She gestured toward a holographic display showing various galactic species. Every one of these races evolved on worlds we would consider paradise. Stable weather, gentle gravity, docile fauna. They've never had to develop the survival instincts that every human child learns before they can walk. They don't understand what it means to be born into a world that tries to kill you every single day. As the human recruits settled in for the night, none of them suspected that their true test would come sooner than anyone expected. In the depths of space, sensors had detected something that would change everything. A massive alien fleet of unknown origin heading directly toward the Academy. The galaxy was about to discover what humans really meant when they called their homeworld a death world, and why Earth's children had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to survive against impossible odds. The emergency alarm screamed through the Galactic Defense Academy at 0347 hours, jolting everyone from their sleep. Commander Zexhai rushed to the command center, his usually immaculate uniform hastily thrown on as he processed the incoming data streams. What he saw made his mandibles lock with fear. "Report," he commanded as he entered the strategic operations room. "Unknown fleet, sir," announced the duty officer, a nervous Zelanti whose translucent skin flickered with stress patterns. 147 vessels of unrecognized design, approaching at maximum sublight speed. They ignored all communication attempts and destroyed the outer sensor array when it scanned them. Zexhai studied the tactical display with growing horror. The ships were massive, their design unlike anything in galactic databases. But Worse than their size was their behavior. They moved in perfect formation, their approach vector calculated to bypass all outer defenses. This wasn't exploration or accident. This was invasion. Time to Academy arrival, he asked. 16 hours, 23 minutes at current speed. Signal the fleet command. We need immediate reinforcements. The communications officer's antennae drooped. Sir, the nearest battle fleet is 72 hours away. The defense platforms in this sector were deactivated last month for maintenance. The Academy was designed as a training facility, not a fortress. Its defensive capabilities were minimal, meant only to deter pirates or handle training accidents. Against a fleet of unknown warships, it might as well have been defenseless. Evacuation protocols, HFY ordered. Begin immediate evacuation of all non-essential personnel. Throughout the station, chaos erupted as thousands of beings from dozens of species rushed to escape pods and civilian transports. But in the human quarters, something different was happening. Sergeant Rodriguez stood before her 23 recruits, her face calm despite the alarms blaring around them. Listen up, people. You know the drill. We've trained for this scenario 1,000 times back home. The humans moved with sudden, efficient purpose that would have shocked any galactic observer. Gone was the clumsiness and hesitation they had displayed during training. Each soldier checked their equipment with practiced ease, their movements sharp and precise. Sergeant, Private Kim asked as she adjusted her weapon settings, "Do we drop the act now?" "Not yet," Rodriguez replied. "But be ready. If this station falls, our mission parameters change drastically." The human soldiers weren't just recruits. They were Earth's most elite special operations personnel, each with decades of combat experience across Earth's various conflict zones. Their apparent weakness had been an elaborate deception, designed to gather intelligence while presenting humanity as a non-threat to galactic powers. Private Chun sealed his environmental suit and performed a final weapons check. Unlike the standard-issue equipment other species used, human gear was built to function in the extreme conditions of Earth. What the galaxy considered harsh battlefield conditions were comfortable working environments for these soldiers. Meanwhile, Commander HFY was discovering just how unprepared the Academy was for real combat. Most of his staff had never seen actual warfare, having spent their careers in the peaceful galaxy where conflicts were resolved through diplomacy or brief, civilized exchanges between professional militaries. "Sir," called the tactical officer, "the evacuation is proceeding too slowly. At current rate, we won't complete it before the unknown fleet arrives." "HFY Gangulet, ZPD." The Academy housed 47,000 beings, but the evacuation vessels could only carry a fraction of that number in each trip. They would need multiple runs, and they didn't have time. Priority evacuation, he decided. Essential personnel and advanced students first. Captain Thrello SS, the Bruton combat instructor, approached the command console. "Commander, I volunteer to remain and organize defensive positions. Perhaps we can delay them long enough for the evacuation to complete." HFY looked at the massive warrior with respect. "Captain, with what forces?" "Most of our combat-rated personnel are first-year cadets with minimal training." "We work with what we have," Thrello SS rumbled. "I've reviewed the station schematics. The main corridors create natural choke points. We can establish defensive positions and make them pay for every meter." It was a desperate plan, but HFY couldn't see an alternative. "Do it. Organize any volunteer defenders. We'll hold as long as possible." As word spread through the Academy, volunteers began gathering in the main assembly hall. HFY was moved to see beings from dozens of species stepping forward, despite their fear. These were teachers, students, and support staff with minimal combat experience, but they understood that someone had to buy time for the evacuation. The human recruits arrived as a group, their movements synchronized in a way that hadn't been apparent during training. Sergeant Rodriguez approached Captain Thrello SS and saluted. "Sergeant Rodriguez reporting, sir. Human contingent ready for defensive assignment." Thrill OSS looked down at the small human woman, noting how she stood perfectly at attention despite the chaos around them. There was something different about her posture, her bearing, that hadn't been there during training exercises. Sergeant, with respect, your people have struggled with basic training protocols. This will be actual combat against unknown hostiles. Rodriguez met his gaze steadily. Sir, my people understand the situation. We request assignment to the most dangerous positions. Something in her tone made Thrill OSS pause. As a veteran warrior, he had learned to recognize the signs of true combat experience. The human sergeant carried herself like someone who had seen real warfare, not the fumbling recruit he had observed over the past weeks. Very well, he decided. Your unit will take position at Junction 7. It's one of the primary corridors leading to the evacuation zones. As the defenders dispersed to their positions, Zexhai couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental was changing. The crisis was forcing him to see everything in a new light, and what he saw when he looked at the humans now was troubling him. They moved through the academy corridors like they owned them, navigating the complex layout without hesitation. Their equipment checks were performed with professional efficiency. Most disturbing of all, they showed no signs of the fear that was affecting every other species on the station. 8 hours until the unknown fleet arrived, and the Academy's defenders were as ready as they could be. The evacuation continued, but thousands of beings remained on the station. Whatever was coming, they would have to